Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Zulu's Painting Show. There you go. Sorry. Trying to produce this and also talk in it is always a very interesting process. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Painting Show. Today we're going to be returning to our snail that we worked on before. Um, I today's going to be interesting. We're gonna try some experimentations. Some of these techniques I've done before, other ones I have not. So you're gonna get to learn along with me. Let's go ahead and head over to the snail. That'll make it a little easier to show kind of what we're doing today. So, as you can see, he's gotten his other arms done. The wash went on only moments ago, so we've got a little bit of that drying up. As you can see, it'll change the color, and this is actually I like this is a good thing for you to be able to see because what it looks like with the wash still drying is very different from what it'll look like once it is fully dried. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to finish this guy's little noggin here, get that all cleaned up. I think we're going to do a little bit of highlighting on his vines, and then we're going to, well, we might wait for the vines, because I think you guys know how to highlight vines. What I'm really looking forward to is these little rocks he has in his hands. Now, I kind of want to play around with a couple different techniques to try and get these to look more like crystals or other sort of fancy stones, maybe some jade. So we'll use some of the techniques that we've used before on the canopies for the mechs, a painting style called jeweling. And then we'll play around with some other techniques that I've used before. This guy has some really nice lines on it, so I think that one will be a really easy one to kind of show some different techniques on. This guy here has some nice fun angles on it as well, which I think will make working on it quite easy as well. So yeah, we're gonna experiment with different colorations for the different stones. Get this guy's head finished up. We might, if we have a chance, try to do something with this underbelly because I'm still not entirely happy with it. I've got some technical paints I might play around with, but we'll see how far we get. The first things first is we got to finish off kind of the main parts of it, and then we can start playing around with more detailed stuff. So first things first, we're gonna snag our first color of the day, which let's see. Here we go. Which is Screamer Pink. I really like this color. It's a very unique color. Because it's kind of pink, it's kind of purpley. So far the best I've managed to get a color to look on this stream. And yeah, it does have an odd kind of look to it, but that's what I like about it. Is it's a very unique color. Grab some. And there's a reason the crimson is out, and not just because I was using it to finish up the tentacles. But we'll get to that. All in due time. Let's see. For the head, I think we are actually going to stick with our starter brush, just because the point has a nice smallness to it. We don't need like incredible accuracy for our tip right now because we do have a pretty large area, but this line here on his head, we want to really maintain that line, so I'm gonna start there. And yeah, we're just gonna dive right in. I did watch the last time I painted the snail, and I realized that I did have a lot of times that it was just a whole bunch of the stand. So I'm gonna work very hard on making sure that you get the snail and not the stand, because the snail is the interesting part. Stand is incidental. Now, I'd really like to not have to clean up these lines, but I also really want them to come to the edges. So, making sure I have a nice nice accurate tip is going to be very helpful. I'll make sure I'm in my focal range. Yeah, that's perfect. Remembering that you have multiple angles for painting at, I think is something that, especially when with stuff like this that we're on, is very important, because it has a nice upraised lip, and I think it'd be easy to sort of, oh, I think I did here a little bit, yeah, kind of forget about it. You want to make sure that you don't have any of your primer showing through. I noticed that I was having some troubles with that on the top here, and especially actually on the underside. You can see some lighter color there. That's because I didn't get all the way to the edge. So I'm gonna need to go back through and add a little more there. His little tiny face. So what's kind of interesting about the color scheme for this particular part of the snail is I'm trying to get it in style to match the Hydra's head. Now, as it turns out, Hydras and snails, very different shaped heads. So trying to sort of find the kind of design aesthetic that will best match each other is a very kind of interesting thing. For instance, on the Hydra, it was pretty easy. The lower jaw is that sort of lighter white color. There was a nice big sort of crest. It's not really a crest. It's a sort of a line down the center of the Hydra's head. That one ended up being the yellow, the sort of the stamen or pistils of the flower that the head is trying to look like, and then a little bit of sort of highlighting on the top of the head. If I could actually just show you guys, but I am in the midst of coloring. So what was interesting was trying to evoke words, trying to evoke that same sort of aesthetic, but with a very different head shape. So trying to think of what things were where. So what I ended up settling on was the white stripe in the center is going to be that kind of pinkish. The little teeth are going to be the yellow part, and then the two ridges are going to be the other part. I don't know if the stream is stopping for you or if it's just my laptop that's having trouble. I'm gonna refresh that one. Let's see. The stream says it's looking good, so I'm gonna have to assume that it's my other laptop giving me troubles. Here we go. Let me grab out the Hydra and show you kind of what I mean. So he's got this, and I still need to finish this head. It was a lot of half-finished projects, but trying to kind of re-evoke that look and feel on this head is kind of ending up making it so we'll have, these will be yellow, this will be the pink, and then we'll do some sort of light stripes. In fact, let's go and do that now. I'm going to go to our matte white from our Army Painter set. And this, any of the Army Painters that I'm using are just from the Army Painter starter set, along with that starter brush. So it's a good way to get yourself a solid sort of base of paints. And then you can, as needed, as your sort of things that you want to color in different ways expands, then you can get slightly different colors. So this is, so what I'm going to do here is I want to try and get some of these ridges, and I want to just get the very edges of them. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking my brush, I've loaded it with paint, and I'm just dragging it very lightly along that sort of upraised spots. It's only this very highest points are getting the paint. Because were I to try and do these lines with the tip of the brush, it would be incredibly hard. Whereas this way, I can just sort of use the contours of the model to do the work for me. Make sure the brush isn't too loaded though, because that makes it so even just a little bit of pressure and you've got thick, fat lines, and I don't want those. And I think we were talking about this last episode. I generally prefer to do this for this sort of like very thin edges like this. You can't always, so sometimes you gotta really get in there with your brush tip. There we go. But even with these very thin lines, I'm going to have to do 2 coats. I want them to be a little bit lighter. Now this whole thing is going to get covered with a wash, which is definitely one of those things where all of my hard work to turn it white is going to be not really undone, but sort of undone as I put the other color on. But by making sure that the undercoat is this nice stark white, it means that the color that I get is going to be much more sort of the color I'm looking for. And I might come back and whiten up these a little bit more once we've gotten the wash on it. Speaking of which, let's dive into that. Oh, sorry. Hope that you guys could see that last part. Gotta be more mindful of where the camera is. Play to the camera. I'm going to be using a lot of this. Oh, let me go ahead and show you what it is. This is our Karaborg Crimson. I actually really like this as a wash because it does some really interesting things to your colors. And I think next week what I'm going to try and do is get a model, get it completely based, and then play around with different colored washes and different color oh goodness, sorry, I'm trying to get back. Okay, there we go, we're live again. Try to play around with the different washes to kind of show how the different washes affect different colors. So the same wash on 2 different colors, different washes on the same color, and kind of just experiment with how things look. All right. I really enjoy what this red wash does to this the Screamer. Is it Screamer Pink? Yeah, Screamer Pink. Just really makes it very vivid, which is a lot of fun. And there you have it. Got a nice sort of snaily flower head. Now we just got to do his mandibles and we can dive onto those rocks. Crystals, whichever they end up being. Probably be a little combination of A and B. It's a snail that likes to collect stones, so we end up with a lot of different types. All right, so we're gonna go to our yellow for our base yellow, because we're gonna go ahead and I like to have a good rich yellow, so we're gonna go ahead and start with the base yellow of the Everland Sunset, which is Citadel's base color, and then we'll transition to a layered yellow so we can get a nice sort of thing. We'll probably slap a wash on there as well to really bring out the colors, or bring out that contrast. All right. Do I need a smaller brush? I think this brush will be fine for now. Also, it's going to start looking a lot like, oh, this is some thick paint. Apparently I did not shake it nearly enough. There we go. So it's going to start looking relatively similar to the stuff around. Actually, it is already pretty yellow. Never mind. Oh, let me see if I can get this guy in here. Make sure you can see what I'm doing. I like playing around with this yellow to really emphasize the mouth of this thing as kind of a reminder that it does have a mouth and it can bite you. I took it out the stand just so you guys can see that what I'm doing a little easier. I want it to get lost behind things. One of the reasons I like having a... Oh gosh. Oh no. Dried paint, get off. One of the reasons I like having stands is makes it easier to hold, but on occasion they do get in the way. And even if you're using a bit of sticky tack and a paint pot, on occasion you just gotta take it off the old handle to be able to get to all the spots you need to get to. Yeah. So I had a question on one of the painting groups I'm part of, the BattleTech painting group actually, where someone was asking when to use washes, which I think is an excellent question because yeah, it is one of those things where it's not necessarily intuitive. When do you wash? Generally, it starts to smell. No. So I like to turn to a wash when there is very much a contrast between the sort of deep recesses and the higher points. These mandibles are a great example of, now that it has a single color on it, it's sort of flattened out everything. So I want to really get those, especially with how sort of spiky it's looking. Really want to bring that out. Now, the question becomes, which wash do I want to use? So you've got your Nuln Oil, which is going to be your black wash, and that'll bring it down a lot. And I don't really want to darken all the colors that much. I do still want it to be yellow. I could go with the Eggrass Earth Shade, which is more of a brown wash, but I think that's a little bit darker than I want as well. I think I'm going to go for the sepia, the Seraphim Sepia. Essentially, what's nice is Army Painter does have kind of your different darknesses of washes. So you can basically pick light tone versus dark tone, which now would be a great time for one of those. But I only have the one tone for my Army Painter. Oh. Dipped my finger in the paint. So we're going to go ahead and go to our monster brush, this is the one I use a lot of times for washes. And then we're going to do a nice even coating. Yeah. So we've darkened up the recesses, but we haven't darkened it up. Darkened up the whole paint scheme too much. One of the things that, oh yeah, I like how that's looking. One of the ways that I was originally taught to paint, I need to get that corner. Remember, you gotta always look at all your angles. And that's perfect because I need to let it dry anyway. One of the things that, when I was first learning to paint, I was taught the base, wash, dry brush, and then like detail, like layering. I have since discovered that dry brushing is a sort of, it's not a very precise technique. It definitely has its place. I think it's useful in a lot of different ways. However, what I've discovered is it makes it look much sort of much more powdery. So to mitigate that, what you can do is do your dry brush and then do your wash. And that'll I think help a lot, sort of flattening things out. All right, we're gonna let that dry because washes always take a long time to dry. So now we get to the fun part. Play around with some of these rocks. So I have an experiment, and it's a technique that I really enjoy having in my arsenal. So I figure this rock will be a perfect place to show you how to do it. And for it, I need to start with some reds. So we're going to start with our corn red. Excuse me. Also, this wet palette is very quickly filling up with colors. Small bits of colors. I don't want to fill it up. Also, I need to turn this guy so the focus is the rock. I noticed that was the problem I did last time. I was working on the sides, and that made it hard to see things. Honestly, the streaming is in a lot of ways very much like painting. Every time you do it, you're going to learn new things you didn't know before. Which means as long as you're paying attention to what you're doing and you're being mindful, you can improve every time, which should ultimately be the goal. You're trying to get better. All right. Unless you're already amazing, in which case I don't know why you're watching me do this. So we're going to go to our regiment brush for this particular one because I want to cover kind of a wide, clean area. So I'm going to snag our red, and then we're just going to do a thin, even coat of the red on our rock. And as you can see, we're already losing a lot of that pretty detail that just the white dry brush had on it, which makes me a little sad, but we'll come back to it. And I might for one of these rocks just keep the dry brush and then just hit it with a wash and sort of see how it looks and how I feel about it. But for this particular one, I want to kind of control the color, which means I can't just let my sort of previous overbrushing and other colors be what guides things. I've definitely done that before, like just let sort of things that kind of accidentally happen kind of guide the color. I did that with one of my mechs recently. I accidentally dry brushed a little bit of my metallic onto the part of the mech that was supposed to look painted, and I really like the look it had. I ended up for that doing a layering version of it, but still just that, because originally it wasn't going to have any sort of wear and tear, but because I missed, it's a happy little accident. Now, on occasion, you definitely get the color where you don't want it, and if that happens, it's okay. You can go back over and fix it. This model is filled with spots where I got colors where I did not want them, and that is okay. I will go back and fix the bits. Last week we were playing around with our Wolverine, and we did just that, going through and cleaning up some spots where the blue had gotten a little thick. Sorry, the light blue was the lines were a little thicker than I wanted them to be. All right, so we've got that first layer mostly done. A nice even coat. It doesn't need to be too even, but I also don't want it to. I want my color differences to be intentional. I mean, zenithal priming, the whole point of that is that you can kind of let your shading happen sort of by the will of the brush and the design of the model. Sometimes you want to be a little bit more sort of intentional with your things, and you can see to an extent the lines of the stone, and we're gonna be returning to those because I really do want to bring those out. Okay, that's the last bit of the tentacle. So all right, well, we let that dry. We're gonna go to. Well, I feel like we should have just a conventional stone, right? Just like a good old-fashioned. Oh, sorry, did not mean to hit the speaker. Just a good old-fashioned gray rock. Sorry. Gotta make sure my bristles stay all clumped together the way they ought. Oh, also, I don't know if I mentioned this since I've gotten started, but I do the brushes that I keep around. In order, we've got the regiment brush, we've got the dry brush, we've got the monster brush over here, and then the starter brush. This brush comes in the starter kit, and then hiding over here is our character brush. So those are the ones that I'm using for these ones. If you're wondering, those are the names of them. Gray. Let's get exciting. Let's get some gray. Oh, I should also do a purple one. Sorry, I got a lot of purple, so it's always fun to play around with stuff. Oh, God, this wet palette is getting really full. That's okay. You know what? Those teeth are getting, well, sorry, a little all over the place, but that's okay. We're making paint happen. Sometimes it's it's kind of a process that's all over the place. That's okay. Let's go ahead. So before, when I mentioned I didn't want to use a dark wash on this, I want this to be particularly dark. So we are going to go to our black wash for that. So you could use the dark tone if you're using army painters. For this one, I am going to be using the good old-fashioned Nuln oil. So I'm using the Nuln oil in this particular case because I want a really dark red. I want an incredibly dark red. Now I could be going in with the Arc Crimson shade, but I do just want this to be dark. So even as dark as I'm, that should be fine. Could have put a little black in the red I was using, but I think this will be fine. Oh man, it is pooling something fierce. It's bringing back out those lines. Now we don't want it to pool there the way it is. So we'll just dry off the brush, come in, so we just stick it on the edge. It just soaks that paint right up. We do still want some in the recesses to darken it up, but we don't want to really make it too bad there. All right. I got a little bit of pooling here we don't want. And a little bit of pooling there. I just darkened up that red just a little bit. Not as much as maybe I was wanting, but that's okay. Worst case scenario, this doesn't work the way I want it to, and we'll have to come back to it. All right. So since we have a moment while that dries, I am actually going to go to my character brush because I want to do some edge highlighting for the mandibles. All right, so we're going to our demonic yellow. Give that a good proper shake. We're just going to do a tiny dollop because I'm running out of room and I don't need a lot. Yeah, that'll be plenty. It's funny, it looks, just looking at the front of this thing, it looks quite yellow. But when I look at this yellow next to this yellow, it's even more noticeable, the sort of color difference. So I'm going to really just lighten up that, lighten up these mandibles. Get a little bit of yellow on the old brush. Oh, close my Nuln oil so I don't spill it all over my work surface. And then and again, I'm going to try to use the very tip of my brush. Try to just get the very, oh man, let's see. There we go. Try to just get the very edges. Oh. And already, I always forget how quickly the paint dries on this very tiny brush. The thing to remember is the smaller the bristles, the less paint, the quicker it'll dry. So if you've got a really thick, chunky brush, it'll hold that paint, and it'll hold a lot of paint for quite some time. So for this yellow, I really want to try and concentrate on the tips of the mandibles. And then brush away from the tips to make sure that I'm concentrating the paint on the fronts. And this is, oh, that looks nice. Got a nice contrast between the kind of the dark spots and the light spots. Got a good dynamic range. And the very center of the mouth is still quite dark, which is very nice. I'm quite pleased with that mouth. It's a good mouth. All right, looks like our big rock is just about dried, so we can start getting to the new part. So I'm going to be using a highlighting technique on this guy as well. And we're going to keep using this here character brush because the colors are going to be quite thin. So normally when you are doing your layering, and actually these are these mandibles are kind of a good example of that. As you can sort of see, let me get it a little closer. There we go. Nice and close. The very tips are quite light, whereas it has a gentle fade to the dark on the edges. So for your sort of conventional layering, you kind of want to have even colors. The amount of very light parts of the mandibles, the amount of kind of medium tones, and then the amount of dark is kind of equal. It mostly centers towards the mid tones. What we're doing for this rock, however, is all of these edges we're going to make very thin layered lines. And that'll make more sense as we kind of get into it. So my next color, I'm going to go with the Evil Sun's Scarlet. And red is an interesting one because as you try to get red lighter, there's kind of two directions you can go with it. You can go either pink or yellow. I'm going to probably go more towards the pink route, partially because it matches this, and partially because I almost want it to look as though it's becoming transparent. Essentially, the idea is going to be that this is a sort of semi-transparent stone, and the parts where it's thinner, you can see more light through it, which are going to be those edges. But the parts where it's thicker, you can't get as much light through it, so it'll be much darker. And it'll hopefully make sense as I get a little deeper into it. But let's go ahead and get our mid-tone red onto the palette. Ooh. It's a very, very lively red. I'm excited for that. Heading back to our character brush. Right about the old brush. Get a little paint on it. Make sure to spin the brush on the palette to keep a nice sharp point. And then yeah, we're just gonna do some edge highlights. Oh man. It's already so much bigger than I was wanting it to be. But I've got to remember, I'm doing another color after this, and I need that other color to be thinner than this one. So yeah, this is gonna be interesting. I had an army of Necrons, which are a Warhammer 40k faction, and they ended up having a sort of similar technique that I used for their sort of big armor plates, but with blues instead of reds. So this is me sort of experimenting with slightly different colors to see if I can get a similar look and feel. So yeah, I'm just trying to find all the sort of lines that that this rock has, and just trying to bring those up. Difficulty I'm running into here is that with how dark I made that red, the sort of contrast between the two colors is real. So I'm gonna need to, I want to fade the two colors. So what I might have to do is with my original red come through and work the sides a little bit to try and kind of clean up that transition between the two colors. I do want the difference to be pretty stark, but not too much. Well, here, we're going to do this. We're going to experiment with it this way, and then we'll figure out whether or not we like it. The lines are starting to look thick. I'm going to get skinnier here in just a minute when I put that third color in here. All right. So we've sort of found a lot of the lines. We've gotten that first layer in. Got some of the starting points, and now comes the interesting part. Going back to our white. Luckily, we already have on our palette, and it's still wet because the palette is too. That's one of the reasons I really like wet palettes. I've never been one to sort of return to the wet palette, probably because I space too much time out between my painting sessions. But within the session, I have the good fortune of having my colors being right for me. All right. Oh, that's already too big. If your paint is still wet, you can just rub it off. I mean, don't use that as your primary technique for cleaning up your foibles, but as a technique that in a pinch can definitely be used. And I need to clean up the reds. I was watching a YouTuber paint a mural in a time lapse. You could actually watch the paint dry. It was kind of interesting to see. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely need to do some other colors to work with that transition, because that's a real, well, maybe not. Let's get the white on there and we'll see how we feel about that. As of right now, I'm not really liking how it's looking, but that's okay. We can fix it. And we're definitely on the experimentation side of things. Like I've done similar techniques to this before, but like I said, this is doing some new stuff. Okay, okay. A little bit more happy with what it's doing. Get the side of the brush for these. I'm trying to mostly focus the white just on the very tips and edges of things. Like I said, the idea is that you're trying to make it look like it's semi-transparent. So you're trying to see the spots that would have light coming through it. We're getting somewhere. Definitely, unfortunately, to that spot where talking and painting is very difficult. So I will do my best, but I also need to make sure I'm actually where the focus is. Oh, it's a thick line. Okay. I like to think of this technique I'm kind of using like the when someone just spins their arms, when a child rather spins their arms and says, "I'm just to swing my arms, and if someone else gets hit, that's not my fault." So essentially, what I'm doing is I'm doing sort of gentle, quick strokes, and I'm slowly bringing the model closer to my my hand as I do them, trying to make sure I get just as kind of thin lines as possible. Mostly because, admittedly, my depth perception on these guys isn't great. Having a hard time telling sort of how close the tip, I mean, because it's a very thin tip to the brush. So, oh, and we're making progress. Not sure how exactly I feel about this. I might have to hit the whole thing with the crimson wash, redden up those lines. We'll see. Let's see how it goes. Like I said, I'm experimenting today. You're getting to watch me figure out what the heck I'm doing. And if you end up trying these techniques, I'd love to see pictures of what you guys do. We've got, there's a Zulu's Discord. So if you go to zulusgames.com, go to the community page, there is a Discord there. There's a whole miniatures section. Feel free to throw the pictures of what you've done so far on there. Oh, dang it. Well, line's got a little thick there. See, I wasn't concentrating. Got a little messed up. And I'm thinking what I should have done in the first place was just do all the lines in white and hit it with the red wash and then do just a little bit of white on top of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that now. See if it does more what I'm wanting it to. Yeah, because at this point, you can't really even see that light red from before. So we're heading back to our monster brush. Oh gosh, sorry. And we're going to head to our crimson wash. And then we're just going to wash the whole rock again. Oh, so I've got a question from Jamie. Are you asking about these back here, the wooden stands? Because unfortunately, those are not something that we have in the store. I got these from Broken Token. Broken Token normally does a variety of inserts for board games, but they also had these paint stands, which I love because they come in either the sort of big Citadel size or you can get the Viejo Army Painter size. Just nice. Oh, I think I like that a little better. Okay. Yeah, we've reddened it up a little bit. Oh man. What it looks like on the camera versus what I see is just a little bit different, which is interesting. But I like it. That's a little bit more what I was looking for. I don't know if I'm 100% satisfied with it, but the technique is yeah, I don't know. All right, let's. You know what? We'll come back to it. You know, I think it's always a good thing to on occasion. If you're not sure how you feel about a thing, come back to it later. All right, so I put this guy back. Hop over to the other side, and I kind of want to play around with like an almost amber looking stone. I know that its teeth already have that sort of yellowy amber look to them, but I kind of like that look, honestly. And I want to play around with it a little bit over here. So what I'll do is I'll make it on the opposite side, so hopefully it won't be too obvious that I'm using very similar colors and techniques. I've already got the out on my brush or my palette, so that'll be easy enough to hop into. This one I definitely want to play around a little bit more with that sort of jeweling technique, where you start with your base color, excuse me, and then on the sort of top part you make it so that it's darker, and then unintuitively as you go further down you make it somewhat lighter. I've done it before on a couple of the canopies of the BattleTech minis. I haven't really done it on something that's kind of odd shaped like this, so I'm interested to see what that'll look like, or if I can even duplicate it. I think also I need to keep reminding myself this is not something I will have next to my face. This is something that will be on a tabletop. I'm trying to make sure I'm focused. Yeah, and you can see I got a couple little bits here and there of things that aren't. Where paint is not where it ought to be. Okay. Got our base coat down. I'm going to dive back into our washes. Oh, and I've got this brown here I was using for the tentacles. Now that I'm seeing it next to the yellows and some of the other colors, it does definitely have a darkness to it, or an orangeness to it. I think I might use that for some of my very dark colors on this little back gem here to try and play around with the colors. All right. To our wash. Oops, my sepia is getting low. Oh yeah, especially with that sepia on there, it really looks like that brown. I might play around to that to really darken up that tone. And while that dries, I think I want to go back and do just a couple little touches of the pure white on our other rock, just to see if that maybe does more of the kind of look that I'm going for. So let's see. We're back to here. Yeah, it's not bad. Still not as keen on it as I could be, but we'll see how we do. Again, I'm assuming that either that tomorrow I'll look at it and either be like, okay, that's not bad, or that needs to change. It needs to change. So I'm just gonna try and hit the very corners. Just a little bit. This is honestly why I end up working on a couple of models simultaneously, because you'll have spots where it's drying. You need to work on something else for a minute to kind of see where you're at. But also just having different spots on the model to be able to work is nice. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah. My fear is that if I keep touching it, I'm gonna make it worse. Yeah. I don't know yet. I think it's definitely one that I'm gonna have to come back to and see how I feel about it. But it looks like our sepia is still drying, which is annoying. Run out of time. Ugh. I might though. Well, I suppose while I let that dry, I can real quick show you what my plan is for these vines. I'm gonna grab our moot green. There's no room on the palette. That's okay. Again, we're using that character brush because I want a nice fine detail. A lot of brush control. And then, yeah, we're just gonna go just along the tops of these here lines to really sort of sell that color. And they're kind of, you know, they're a little, I don't know how to describe these. What am I trying to say? Like kind of accents? Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. So I want to really accent them. Especially with the much sort of duller green just next to him. And I'm not going crazy. I'm not doing like the whole vine in the very bright green. I just want to get just the very ridge of it. So a lot of times, you know, you'll have plants, leaves and things. They'll have that kind of vein isn't the right word, but they'll have that kind of thick upraised spot. So we're just trying to evoke that feeling just by little light green lines. Happy little light green lines. I would probably need to do some washing on the leaves to bring back out the, because they have nicely detailed gills on the leaves. Not gills, those are mushrooms. Is it veins? The lines on a leaf. There you go. Just little accents. Try to bring those out. Yeah, I still think I'm not entirely sure about that rock. We might come back to it eventually in a later part. All right. And then again, we're just doing slightly lighter colors along these sort of bottom parts, but only up to the edges. Oh man. Oh, darn. Doing that thing where the paint dries on the edges more quickly, and then I just mush the paint from the sides off. Need to not do that. And again, you're just trying to find the different lines and ridges of the stone and try to just bring those out. Fighting me. Well, I think we've reached the end of our time so far. I think the thing I'm most satisfied with is this guy's head. I think he turned out very nicely, especially those little mandibles. The little green lines I think help really accent the vines on him. I'm feeling like I don't know. I'm gonna come back to this rock here, or this crystal, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. It doesn't really feel as crystally as I would like it to. And then this guy I need to come back to as well. But we've gotten started. We're playing around with some of the techniques. Yeah, like I said, I'd love to see what you guys are painting. We have a Discord where you can put your miniature pictures. For those of you who play BattleTech, we do have a channel, not a channel. Is it? Yeah, like a channel that is devoted to BattleTech. We'd love to see your BattleTech pictures. D&D minis being painted also is something that we would love to see. So And if you're interested in this nice snail, it is from this guy, the Goblin Village Chief. Sorry, Village of the Goblin Chief Epic Encounter. I think we still have a couple copies of those in the store. Of course, web palettes are always nice to have. And I think we are done for today, so stay safe out there, enjoy your painting, and I will see you next week where we'll probably be painting on a Battletech miniature again. And we might come back to the snail eventually. I might on my time, I'll try to figure out what I'm doing with that stone. Stone. Or I might tomorrow look at it and think to myself, it's not too bad. So really though, very happy with how those mandibles turned out. Really nice looking mandibles. Anyway, have a lovely week, and I will see you next week.